Marion, I see, is up there now. She'll be able to show you some of what that looks like. So anyway, the Heritage Center, we teach a lot of classes. The urban farm here we designed as basically an educational facility. So we teach, as Mark mentioned, I teach culinary class here. So we actually have the chef students out here doing a lab class. So we have that going on. We have permaculture classes, and that'll have to come up on a separate meeting, but we teach that. We teach compost. Marion's a permaculture and compost teacher. We teach vermiculture. And then there are other groups here who teach other stuff. There's indoor, outdoor gardening, herbs, succulents. There's all kinds of stuff going on at Rogers Ranch. So it's a great place. The owner of the entire facility is Pleasant Hill Rec and Park. And so we're grateful for them allowing all of us to do all of these cool things here. So that's a little bit of the history on Rogers Ranch. There's more to it, but once it's open here again in the house, you guys can come by and visit. So we'd welcome you to come. So Mark, how's that for a background? Good?
Yeah, that's fine. And later in the show, maybe as you wrap up, you can tell us about specific projects and programs that you do with youth and the workshops that we hold there at Rogers Ranch through Sustainable Contra Costa.
Sure. Yeah, we can bring that up. We do a number of workshops here. Some of those are the permaculture one. I do other ones. I work with special needs kids here, so there's no shortage of things going on. I think basically, as Mark said, if you can put in the chat window things you're interested in, we're always creating new courseware. So we'd love to know what attracts people. So let us know. So all right, let's move forward. We have enough for about 8 hours. So we'll sit here for maybe 4.5. That's all we need today. So Marion's going to talk. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what's going on here at the farm. And I'm assuming that most people kind of want to know, it's become the hot topic, start your own garden, right? So there's Marion looking like the Statue of Liberty with a pepper.
There you go.
So I think a lot of people are suddenly, for obvious reasons, now interested in, holy cow, I should grow my own food. So Rogers Ranch is a good place to come and learn about how to do that. Our motto has always been learn by doing. So you can come here on Saturdays once we're in full swing again and work with us on Saturdays, and we'll teach you. But tonight we're going to give you just a couple of pointers about how to get started with your home garden. And I can see some of the participants. I know some of you are already pretty good gardeners, so you can drink wine while we're talking about the stuff you already know. So, Marion, are you on? Are you audibly on?
I think I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Well, as you get ready to start your spring garden, I want you to think about a couple of things. Of course, everybody runs to the nurseries or they run to wherever they can find plants and they go, oh, give me a pepper plant, give me a tomato plant, let me get it into the ground. Well, wait, there's things you need to do before then. First of all, it's too cold to plant your peppers right now, unless you're on a south-facing side, unless you can protect them from the nighttime temperatures, unless your soil temperature is up about 60 degrees. So there's lots you can do while you're getting ready for these beauties to go into the ground, not the least of which is you need to prepare your soil. Everything starts with good soil. Hopefully you've got some cover crop in the ground, or you've been amending your soil with some compost to make it really good and happy so that when the plant roots do get put into them, they have a joyous homecoming and all the microbes can meet the plant roots and have you a phenomenal plant. So I'm going to try to turn this camera so that you can see some of our cover crop that we have going. So what you're looking at right now is right there is a very heavy, what is that? That's a sugar, yeah, it's a trellis full of sugar snaps and snow peas, and they are ready to be chopped down. So about 2 weeks before you want to put your crops in the ground, you want to chop those down. You can do a chop and drop, or you can compost. That's incredible green matter. That's incredible nitrogen for your compost pile. So hopefully everybody's composting. If you're not composting yet, definitely get in contact with either Sustainable Contra Costa, or if you are in the Recycle Smart service area, they give phenomenal composting classes there. Don't know how soon we can be back in person, but in the meantime, Zoom's turning out to be a pretty reasonable alternative. So you got your cover crop, you're going to cut it down, you're going to work it into the soil. If you've got some worm castings, that would be lovely. If you've got a little pepper that's just hanging out, waiting to go into the ground, if it's at least this size, and what's that, about 4 inches, consider pinching it. So you would want to go where there's new growth. I don't know, can you see where there's new growth on the side? I would pinch that right there, put it back into the greenhouse, and it'll bush out. And one of the reasons you want to do that is the bushier it gets, the more leaves it's going to get, the more it will protect the pepper from sun scald. So that's just a little example of one of the things you can do. The other thing you want to consider, depending on how much room you have, and I'm going to turn it back over to John in a second, because he's going to tell you how to decide where you want to plant and what you want to plant. If you've got the room, plant something for the soil as well as for you. And by that, I mean, maybe put in a summer cover crop, put in some plants that are going to feed each other. Put in a pea or a bean that will put some nitrogen, pull nitrogen out of the air and put it into the ground so that it can feed itself and other plants. Put in some nice flowers that are going to attract your good beneficials. Put in maybe something like a maple gray pelargonium that's going to have a lemon scent that will disperse the bad bugs. Maybe plant some buckwheat that confuses the bad bugs as they're flying around, and they forget what they came for and they leave your crop alone. So I know I'm going a little bit all over the place. There's so much to tell you. There's so little time. So let's back it all the way up. And John, why don't you go through how do you decide what to do?
Right. So assuming, and again, I'm looking at some of the people online, and I know some of you already have wonderful gardens. So like say, drink a glass of wine while I'm boring you. But if you're going to start, what do we call it? A resilience garden now, because that's the new Victory Garden term, right? So if you're going to start something, which is a great idea, the very first thing you want to do is figure out what is you want to grow. But before that, you got to figure out where you're going to put it. Maybe seems obvious. But we talk to people all the time about, well, I put it over here, and then we think, well, it's not got the right lighting or something. So you want to think about 3 things. Where's the sun, or where's the light? Is there water? Easy to get. And access, meaning how hard is it for me to get there? And if you join us in the future, Sustainable Contra Costa, we teach a permaculture class through there, and we'll talk more about how to plan what's called zones. But just for now, if you're going to start a garden, make sure that you can get to it. Don't put it, high or somewhere that you won't go walk by frequently, because you do need to take care of stuff all the time. Then you want to make sure you can get water. Ideally, you want to build an automated system so you don't have to worry about watering it when you're gone. But that's another whole seminar. We'll do irrigation if you're interested in how to build that. And then sunshine, and we do what's called a sun map, which takes a little bit of observation. Again, it seems pretty obvious, but you need to know where the sun is going to be. Like here, we have big redwood trees in neighbors' yards. We have to worry about shadows that are coming in. So we strategically place based on that sun map, and also how hot it's going to be and things like that. So we want, shade is okay, but you got to think about that. So sun, water, and access. So you got to figure that out first, and then you can decide, okay, if I've got a place, whatever the place is, I've got it, that's going to help you figure out what you're going to grow, right? So if you have a north wall and it's a little bit shady, you're not going to have great tomatoes, right? So pick something like spinach, lettuce, things like that like shade. If you've got wide open sunshine for most of the day, yeah, go for tomatoes, go for other things that like hot weather. So you need to think about what you want to grow. And I know we've been asked already in the past 2 weeks, since, tomatoes are the new toilet paper. I'm telling everyone, people are just like, I've got to have one. You might, just rethink that. Tomatoes are great, but they're not high yield calories, right? So they're wonderful to cook with, and we're going to grow a bunch here. But don't forget things, if you want to supplement your diet, pick things that are going to be, high yield and high nutrition. Anybody know what's the best thing? I'm going to answer the question for you, but things like beans are extremely good, very productive, and they're going to grow, they're going to produce for you all summer long. So think about beans, and we grow something here called cowpeas. Some of you know that. We'll get back to that, but that's a great thing. So don't make your summer all about tomatoes. It's good, but it's not the only thing, right? Raise your hand if you've ever had okra. Most of the people we teach about growing okra here, most people are like, oh, horrible, I won't eat it. Try it. I'll show you how to roast it. No slime. It's another great food for the summer. So anyway, think about what you're going to do, and it has to match the place you've got. Seems obvious. Every summer we get a lot of people, why isn't my stuff growing? Well, because it's in the wrong place, and or too much water or not enough water. So anyway, so that's that. And Marion, do you want to add anything in there before I roll on?
No, I would say that lettuces do need some sun. They don't need as much as your tomatoes and your solanaceas, but they do still need 4 to 6 hours of daylight or sunlight. So you can put your lettuces behind your tomatoes to help mitigate that afternoon sun, and that will help your lettuces last a bit longer into the season. They're generally not as heat loving though as the tomatoes and the peppers and the okra and the eggplant and all of those traditional summer vegetables. The other thing I would add is, in addition to growing shelling beans, think about any of your pulses. Think about lentils. Think about garbanzo beans. Think about adzuki beans, mung beans, any of your pinto beans, black beans. All of those are going to produce very well for you, and you can eat them as a fresh bean. But even nicer, you can just let the plant go all the way through maturity, harvest those as a dried bean, save some of those beans for next year. I don't know if anybody's tried to order seeds recently, but the seed companies are just inundated with orders. They can't fill them. And some of the seed companies they're saying either we can't help you right now, or check back with us in 2 or 3 weeks. So we don't know what that's going to do to the seed supply for next year. So if you're growing anything not a hybrid, if you're growing a hybrid, which means it's got a parent from this plant and a parent from that plant, and they put the pollen together to create a plant that's going to give you the plant that you are growing, and hybrids have total reasons to be here. But just know you cannot save a hybrid seed unless you're up for a little bit of excitement the following year, because you don't know what that hybrid seed is going to give you. But if you're growing open pollinated or heirloom seeds, which basically means it's bred true for about 50 years, save a couple of the seeds. Also, if you've got kids, oh my gosh, it is magical to watch seeds sprout. And there's a reason it's called Jack and the Beanstalk and not Jack and the Artichoke, because the Jack and the Beanstalk, in under 7 days, those little things are starting to poke their little heads through. So kids love it. So you get the nutrition, you have the excitement of watching it grow. One of the things I love the most is you get reconnected with what's real. We are 3 to 4 generations separated now from our immediate food supply. We need to get that back. One of my favorite quotes that I've heard about this COVID-19 virus thing is, it's like Mother Nature has sent us to our rooms to think about what we are doing. So and Oprah and Maya Angelou said, when we know better, we do better. So let's get back connected to the land. Let's all grow a little bit of something we can eat, we can share, we can smell, we can see, we can taste, we can help the ground, we can help ourselves. And even if you don't have anything, even if you only have a north-facing window, you can still grow microgreens on the inside, and they're going to have 4 times the nutrition of a full-grown plant. So there's something for everybody. If you have any questions on what you can grow, go ahead and put it in the chat window. And we'll tell you if it, because you do need to know your directions, you need to know your aspects, you need to go know your slopes, you need to know your sectors and your vectors. But we want to help you be successful. I do want everybody growing something this summer because it's fun and it tastes really good.
Yeah, and I want to add in some thoughts on that too. You know, again, don't make your whole summer about tomatoes. It's good to have them. We'll have them here too, but you know, try something you haven't had before. We teach, you know, in the culinary class, which I see a few of you have been in. You know, we teach things that people haven't done, and it's amazing how many people start off really hating a particular thing, and after we do it here, I hear always, wow, that's the best thing I've ever had. I don't know why I didn't have it before. So, you know, try something new. The other thing that I want to remind everyone is grow stuff. It's good, but it's very hard to make all your calories come from what you grow. Unless you're very sophisticated and you have a lot of land, it's pretty hard to do. So, you know, go to your farmer's market and support your farmers. They will grow a lot of the basics for you, right? You're going to get everything from cucumbers to tomatoes to you know, a lot of the basics, zucchini, carrots, they're all there for you. So it gives you time and space to experiment with something. You're not a commercial farmer if you're doing it at home. So, you know, have something that's going to be fun. And really, we do want to support our farmers at the farmers markets too. So do both. But I was asked today, you know, how much space do you need to feed one person for a year if you have only what you're growing with no other inputs, no meat, no oils or anything? And it turns out you need, we make all of our beds in 100 square foot sections. So how many of those 100 square foot beds do you need if you don't have anything else? And the answer is about 40 of those. Which is about coincidentally what we have at Rogers Ranch. So in other words, you need about an acre of land and you have to work it very carefully to have things in the right ratios. The point of that is you're probably not going to be able to feed you and your family by yourself unless you have other sources of calories. So again, I wouldn't worry about that. You know, I've had so many people in the last couple of weeks, you know, what day next week am I going to be harvesting tomatoes? And the answer is you're not. You know, take it easy, set your expectations, and grow the right things at the right time. So that's why we're pushing things like beans, because they're so much. Sorry, I feel like earthquake in here. They're so much more productive. So anyway, that's my speech on that. Live dangerously, try something new. So.
John,
back to you, Mary.
So there was a great question on where do you get bean seeds? Interesting. Go to your pantry. Look in your dried section. Do you have any garbanzo beans? Do you have any adzuki beans? What do you have in your pantry already? Now, especially if you have bought organic dried beans, guess what? If they're not more than a couple of years old, they're going to sprout. How do you tell if they're going to sprout? Take out 10 peas or 10 beans or 10 sunflower seeds, whatever you have, as long as they haven't been baked or cooked or roasted or salted or any of that. But if they're in their raw but dried state, 10 beans, wet a paper towel, put those 10 beans, line them up on your paper towel, fold the paper towel over, stick them in a Ziploc bag, and beans should sprout in about 7 to 10 days. So watch them. At the end of that period, open it up, and the number of beans that have sprouted is your germination rate, which will tell you how many you need to plant to get the number that you want. Maybe throw an extra 1 or 2 in. So that's one way. The other is if you've got older seed packets, and let's say they're 2017 or 2018, try them. We find that a lot of our seeds are viable 3 and 4 years. Now, something like a parsnip seed, not so much, But the beans, some of the tomatoes you can hold for 5 years. Try them. Ask around. I can tell you there are 3 houses in Pleasant Hill who have taken out seed packets. They put like 10 seeds in every in a smaller packet, and they label them, and they're hanging them up on clotheslines so the neighbors can just come by and pick. So go to Nextdoor, go to, I don't know, Craigslist, but start asking around who's got bean seeds, even if they're not this year's, even if they're not 2020 bean seeds, who has them? I bet you will come up with somebody who can help you. And also, as John was saying about growing enough food for your own family, think about what can you grow and your neighbors. If somebody's got a fig tree and you've got a lemon tree, and somebody else is really good at growing potatoes, and somebody else has a green thumb on tomatoes, what can you swap with? How can you increase your community that way? The other thing I love about getting together with your neighbors to see what you can grow is, should your crop fail, and thank God we don't have the locusts that are moving through Ethiopia right now, but should your crop fail, maybe some of the neighbors are going to do really well. So maybe next year theirs don't do so well. So just start working with your neighbors, start working with your friends more so than you have in the past, so that we can get a better community, a stronger food network going. I also saw a question about growing cucumbers. Number one answer there is trellis. Take them up. They don't actually need a huge footprint. You can grow cucumbers in containers just fine. Just make sure as soon as you get them in the ground, go ahead and figure out the trellis system, because I can promise you, if you don't, you're going to come out, oh, I don't know, 4 days after you put it in the ground, and that thing is 8 feet tall, or it's just lying all over the ground. So train it to go up. It will serve you long and well. It reduces the incidence of powdery mildew. It will help the fruit grow straight. You can even build an arbor or an arch so it can go up and over and the fruit can hang through, which is A, way fun to look at, B, way fun to walk through, and C, makes harvesting a breeze. So those were 2 of the questions that I've seen so far, and I'd be happy to welcome.
Let me add in on the cucumbers and the squashes and the beans. I don't know, Marion, if you can point the camera over. I don't know if we can see it, but I have what I call my Gilligan's Island structures, and I make them out of bamboo and what's called rabbit wire or rabbit fence. Yeah, you can see one there. There's a structure, and so I use bamboo poles to hold up, and then I lay that very loose, wide open fence on the top, and then from there we hang strings down. Marion's gonna walk over there. We hang strings down, and the beans will grow right up there, and then they flatten out on the fence on the top, and they make a canopy, so you can have things underneath like lettuces and spinach that don't like the hot sun, and you have all these beans that are growing up and hanging down. What's on there now, it looks like a mess. That's because that's last year's dried bean stalks. We're going to break those off and start over now, but that works amazingly well, and it's really easy to harvest then. So that's something. And if you're working with your neighbors, I'll just add in, it is good to check with the neighbors, because if you all grow zucchini, you won't have much of a swap. Marion, just while we're on questions, Denise asked, she was a little surprised about pinching peppers on top and tomato plants on the bottom. That's 2 topics. Do you want to talk about suckering tomatoes and pinching off peppers again?
Sure. Let me see if I can do this.
That looks good.
Okay. Pinching peppers. I don't know if you've grown peppers before, but it is very common for pepper fruits to experience sun scald. Yes, you can put up a sunshade over it, and that will help it some. But if you will pinch out the top of the pepper, and of course now my pepper is all the way over there, but if you'll pinch out the top of the pepper, now it needs to be at least 4 inches tall. I want at least 8 leaves on it, because it's got to continue to photosynthesis. But if you pinch out the top, it's going to start sprouting from lower on the stalk. And in just 1 week, you'll be able to see a fair amount of new growth. Within 2 weeks, the plant should start taking on a whole new shape. So you can make your plant more productive, protect it from sun scald, And it's something you can do while your plant is being hardened off and the nighttime temperatures are getting ready to accept your plant into the earth.
And the temperature for a pepper in the soil is?
Oh, I would not put, really? A pepper wants at least 65 degrees soil temperature, and don't even, unless you can protect it, not recommended to put peppers in until the nighttime temperatures are at least 55 degrees. Tomatoes will recover. Peppers, no sense of humor. If you start a pepper off cold, it is going to remember you for most of its productive life.
Well, it
So
does. It doesn't grow.
it won't grow as well. It's just going to be
Stunted,
unpleasant.
Stunted growth.
Now,
Um,
a tomato, on the other hand, you do want to do something called suckering. Again, depending on what type of tomato you have. If you have a determinate tomato, which is one that's going to not get too tall, going to be more of a bush, most of the fruit's going to become available and ready for harvest at about the same time, maybe not so much. But with a sucker, and the sucker, and a smart person would have brought a tomato out with her. When you have your stalk growing up and you have your a branch coming out here, right in between, right here at about 45 degrees, there's going to be a little sprout. And if you can go through, after the plant's been in the ground for a couple of weeks, you want it to sort of get stable first. You're going to go through and start pinching out those suckers. Each one of those suckers wants to be a new plant. It wants to be a whole new tomato section. You can improve the vigor and the production of your tomatoes by keeping it suckered. You can also keep the size more manageable. Of course, you're going to put it in a cage, or you're going to have some way of stringing it up so that it's got some port as it grows up. But if you don't sucker, some of these tomatoes, they're going to get really, really big and unwieldy and unmanageable. And if you've got your tomatoes less than 3 feet apart, harvesting is going to turn into a challenge. There's going to be the chance for all the fungal and diseases to come in there because there's no airflow going through them. So sucker for vigor, sucker for productivity, sucker for increased airflow. And it smells really good when you do it.
okay, so where are we now? We've got more questions coming, but let's see. What do we want to show now? Marion, do you want to go get some like a seed tray and show us what a seed tray looks like? I guess I can come up there and help you.
Sure. You know what?
I'll talk while you go get one and come back to the camera.
Okay. I'm going to move the camera. So I'm going to sort of walk and talk as I do this. There are several reasons to start seeds in seed trays as opposed to sticking a seed right in the ground. One of the reasons would be you're going to save water, time, and area by starting in a seed tray. You are also going to be able to see what germinates and what doesn't. When it comes time for planting, and while you are waiting for those seeds in the seed trays to germinate, the crop can be already in the existing crop can be in your bed. And actually, I'm going to see if I can show you this. I just walked by it, actually. Okay, so I think my, I don't know if you can see where the heck did it go? Oh, there it is. My soil thermometer, I'm thinking, is pretty broken because it is saying almost 70 degrees, and that's not right. But
Well, it might be residual from today's heat. It might be. It was.
yeah, that's good. That's the highest I've seen it. All right, I'm gonna go get a seed tray. Hold on.
All right. Well, we'll talk. I'm looking at questions that came in. So let's see if I can order things. I'll ask you a quick question. Jennifer asked if metal cages, and I'll have Marion grab one. We use what I call hog wire or remesh to make tomato cages. I've never seen one get so hot that it burned a tomato. And it's we did it last summer, and we had the high last summer of 115 degrees, and it didn't burn it. So now I'll show you. I'll have Marion grab our tomato cage. We don't use those silly little concentric things because they're way too small. So you'll see ours, but no, never been a problem. Sam asked about good nutrient-dense cover crops. Pretty standard stuff. Any beans and peas are really good. That's what we use. Now, cover crops, mind you, are normally sort of winter season, but you can do beans this summer. We do a lot of fava beans. We have gazillions of fava beans. We're just about ready to cut those down because they're nitrogen fixers. There's also vetch, easy to grow. Once you have vetch, you'll never be done with vetch. It seeds itself. We have vetch everywhere. Ryegrass is another good one. Mushrooms actually kind of good for restoring fungi to the soil. We do another one called Austrian field peas, which is great because you can eat the sprouts. So that's one that I'm very fond of. So those are the best: beans, peas, ryegrass, buckwheat. Those are your best cover crops. Now we're coming into summer, so now's the time probably to do your summer crop, and then as we get into September, you can start doing cover crop again. So let's see what else we got questions here while Marion's going to get the stuff.
I'm back.
Okay. We have a question about we're gonna come to Marion. We'll have to see if we can locate up there to show an earth box. Somebody asked, and it's a great question. You know, what can I do with an 8x8 space and in a condo? And if it's if it's a little patio or something or a balcony, you can still do a lot. Before we had the farm, Marion and I we did everything in containers on condo balconies, and we have about, I don't know, 35. We use the one called Earthbox, but there are many brands. It's a container that's about 3 feet long and a foot wide, and it has a reservoir for water in it. That makes it super easy. But you can do any kind of container you want. You can go and you can get a galvanized tub. You can make them out of wood. There's many things you can do. So most everything grows okay in a container. It's good to have them at least 18 inches deep. 2 feet is even better. And as long as you've got water and it's not scalding hot in the environment, you're fine. And even if it is scalding hot, it just means you need to water more often. So we could spend all day on what to grow in a small space. So that might be something you want to come over here in sometime in the future and work with us on how to plan what to grow in a space. But don't be afraid. You can grow almost anything in California in a container garden. And if it's not a container garden, you can grow obviously much. Yes.
Two things. One, I've got an earth box to show. Just, you guys do not judge me. It's full of weeds right now. So I can show you what it looks like. And I can also, one great answer for what you could grow in an 8x8 spot is an herb spiral. So I'll show you the earth box first, and then I'll walk down to the herb spiral. Okay. So this is a very weed infested, don't judge me, I really do know how to garden. So what we
I think that isn't that leftover, that's the tiger nuts that we're growing in there, right? Maybe not.
Yeah, hold on to that thought. So it's got this is where the water goes in, and you can set them up for drip irrigation if you want. And it's got a reservoir, a 2-gallon reservoir in the bottom. And I don't know if you can see below the earth box, there's a little hole. Let me see if I can get fancy right here. So there's the drainage hole right there. These are magnificent. You can get 2 full-size tomatoes in them. We've grown in them for years. It is an excellent, excellent small space solution. So now I'm going to walk and I'll get you to the herb spiral.
Wait. Before you go down there, can you turn around? Somebody asked about tomato cage. I saw you just walked by a tomato cage.
Oh, I did. They're hard to see because the time of night, and this is what, 6-inch hog wire, John?
Yeah, those are 6-inch square. It's called remesh, which is used for concrete.
8 feet tall.
7 feet. But
7 feet tall.
We make them into cylinders. So we wrap it into a circle, and we put one over each tomato. And then 7, you could, if you can find 8 or 10 foot remesh, you could go even taller. It's harder to reach, but a tomato plant will fill that up very easily. So if they were 12 feet or even 20 feet, the tomato plant would actually fill it up. But anyway, that's a great way to make a rack. If you can find remesh, you can buy it at construction supply houses.
And it's also, you could split a roll with a neighbor, and you do have to be careful making them. They are crazy sharp while they're under construction.
We did that last year. We split a roll with one of my students, and that worked out great. So that now we're looking at the herb spiral. Do you want to describe the herb spiral, Marion?
So the herb spiral is an old, gosh, it goes back way before the Middle Ages, and it is a 6 foot in diameter, but with a walking space around that's going to at least a foot. So you've got some comfort walking around. You'll notice this one's made of bricks. You can make it out of wine bottles. You can make it out of any
river rock.
Yeah, river rock's fine. These were from the Pleasant Hill Senior Center when it was being taken down. So we asked if we could have them. And it's basically a Fibonacci curve. It's a nautilus shell. This is a size and, well, it's a shape you'll see throughout nature. Think of galaxies, think of hurricanes, think of snail shells. And we start low and gradually build up because you are using edges and altitude to grow. This is 6 feet in diameter, but we can get between 23, 25 feet of growing space in there. Takes about 4.5 hours to build, about 400 bricks if you're using bricks. Lots of fun, and they're called herb spirals because herbs don't need very much root depth. And you could even fill all of this with straw if you wanted, and then just use potting soil as you are going to put your plants in. It will break down fairly quickly, so you'll have to keep adding the straw, but you can put anything at the base of these that you want. You can put last year's corn stalks or urbanite, anything that's organic, meaning it is or was alive and is not bindweed or any sort of noxious weed, can go in the bottom. You can put newspaper and wood chips, but just your last 8 to 10 inches needs to be soil, or if you're using straw, you would use 8 to 10 inches of potting mix when you were putting your plant in. But this is crazy efficient, and look how pretty that is. And these are all volunteers. This is the calendula and borage that nature just decided it wants to grow here, so we say, okay.
Oh yeah, so herb trials, and again, that's something, there's a little bit of a technique on how to make those, but we don't use cement to hold them together, so we can take them apart and move them and do things, and we have to rebuild them every once in a while, but that's a very cool thing to do. Great project for kids and students and adults. Let's see. So did you find a seed tray, Marion?
Oh, I thought I already showed that. Let me go back.
No, you can go in the greenhouse there and get one.
Oh, I already did.
Oh, you did? Oh, maybe did I miss it? Maybe I was looking at my shoes. In the meantime, somebody asked best container plants to get today or early May. I mean, you need to get, if you're going to do tomatoes, you need to get them now because otherwise they don't grow fast enough. But otherwise, you can start a lot, and this is what we're showing you here. You don't have to buy seedlings. You can make your own from seeds. But what grows in containers, if maybe that was the question, almost anything. You can do cucumbers, you can do tomatoes, you can do okra. We used to do a lot of okra in those earth boxes. That's a lot of fun and you get a lot of yield for the space that you're growing in. Peppers are excellent to grow in containers because they stay warm. So it's actually better. So lots of things can go into a container. I would say don't constrain yourself, get what you want. So Marion, you want to describe the seed tray and show what's going on with that?
Oh, sure. You can, these are all just little individual 6-packs they're called 6-packs. And when we were first starting and we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, we just went to the nursery and said, hey, can I have some of your old 6-packs? And they were happy to give them. They're called a 6-pack because they have 6 sections in them. And we do use a seeding medium. We don't use garden soil. It's going to be too heavy, and heaven only knows what sort of microbes are in there that could cause damping off and other deleterious effects to seeds. But we do use a seeding mix, which is super light. And we just choose whatever seeds we wish. This is a bunch of lettuce and mustards, Mizuma, and yeah, Merlot lettuce, Yadiculae, Forellenschluss, and Buttercrunch. And
All lettuces, those are all looking like they're ready to go in the ground now.
they're ready to go. Yeah.
We use the seed tray because that way we're sure that they're going to germinate, as opposed to putting seeds into the soil directly. Marion, do you want to talk about what happened? What's the difference between putting seeds directly in the soil and what happens to them versus doing it this way?
Yeah, I think we covered that. It's going to be a lot easier to water 72 plants in a seed tray than it's going to be to water 72 plants in soil. I can protect them better from pests, from climate swings, from the biotic, which means living, and abiotic, which means non-living forces, if I have them in a seed tray and if they're in a greenhouse or they're in my house. Also, when it comes time to transplant them, I know exactly what needs to go where. And by that, I mean, if you throw seeds in the ground, a lot of plants that you want look very much like weeds that you don't want. So when you throw stuff in the ground, is that an amaranth or is that pigweed or whatever you're trying to grow? If you're using seed trays, you know exactly what you have. You can space it very precisely so you can improve your yield. And if one does die, when you get it into the ground, if you've held back one or two, you can pop that one into the ground so that you're off to a good growing start. Oh, the other thing is, once when you transplant out of a seed tray into the soil, you're giving it a second shot of nutrition. So it gives it a little extra boom and ready to go. And we've got 11 reasons, and I don't know how many I just went over.
I can send out the chart. So seed trays are good. So what else do we want to talk about? It's probably time for open up for a Q&A because we're at 7:45, 7:47. There's one other question in here about do we use cold frames in this environment? Actually, well, there's cold frames and covers. Right now we have our tomatoes. Some of our tomatoes are under a small, which really is a hoop house, and covered with greenhouse plastic in the night and then uncovered during the day. So because we're right at that time now, like today, it was 83 degrees out here. So if you put plants in a cold frame, you're going to basically have steamed dinner for yourselves. It'll overdo it. In the winter, December and January, cold frames are good, which cold frame is basically some protected environment that lets light in and keeps the plants warm. So in this environment, in this climate, they're useful in the cold months. Now we're kind of beyond the time of cold frame. So you can go to Hoop House, and there's a bunch of ways to make that, probably beyond the scope of tonight's webinar, but we use a lot of PVC or other materials that we can place things over at either greenhouse plastic. There's a substance called Agribon, which is kind of like a thin white cloth. And then as we get into the warmer months, we use shade cloth. And there's also bird netting if you do want to direct sow, because you will need, I forgot to mention, if you directly sow, birds and critters will get your seeds. Another reason to use seed trays. So I want to do that. So I don't know, Mark, are you manning the question line, or am I? I guess I can see them all here.
Well, let's try this, Tyler. If you're up for this, let's try to open up the audio on selected people with questions. I know that there's always a challenge with background noise or interfering signals and stuff, so we've kept everybody muted. But if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand, or you can indicate in the chat that I've got a specific question. So anybody want to actually address a question directly to John or Marion? I'm not seeing any.
Well, I have
Oh, there's one. Okay.
Nancy Garcia had a question about cantaloupes. So
Okay. One. And then Naresh, you have a question, right? So Tyler, you want to take Nancy's question first, and then Naresh?
yeah, let's do Nancy first.
Got it. Okay. And so you're gonna unmute them.
I can just read it. I see the
Oh,
text.
wait. Okay, I'm
She's
talking.
unmuted.
There.
All
I'm,
right.
I'm unmuted. It's Nancy. And I know Tyler's sister, Holly, anyway, so hi. But I think I have maybe long ago once tried to grow a melon in California, and I just felt like it was difficult because of our climate. So I was just listening and thinking
climate is
about
great
like
for
where I
that.
can plant the heirloom seeds my friend had sent me that I just sprouted because they were here.
Mhm.
So I have this Minnesota midget cantaloupes, so they've been sprouted in the seed trays. And at first, before I listened to the webinar, I was thinking of planting them against a south-facing wall that the area doesn't really get water. I would always have to water it. It's
Mm.
a fairly dry area up next to the house. But I thought maybe I could put a trellis. And then also I do actually have a raised bed that has really good soil, but it happens to be on a north-facing side of a fence. So
Mm.
I'm thinking maybe the soil will be warm because it's in a raised bed, but it's not going to get as much nice direct sun. So I don't know. Do you have thoughts about cantaloupes?
Nancy, you're onto your first concept is great, and I like the small melons, and that's what we usually grow here because the big melons require a lot of water, and they almost invariably get nicked by some, squirrel or rat before they get fully mature. So I love the midget melons. My favorite is a French one called Charente, but the Minnesota midgets are good, and anything that grows, like the size of a softball. You'll get more of them and more likely to harvest them. Now, a trellis is a really good idea because as they sit on the ground, a lot of times they rot or the bugs come up and get inside of them. So I like my Gilligan's Island trellis things where they can actually hang down so the vines can grow across the top and the melons can hang down. That works really well. But melons like a lot of water and a lot of sun for the most part. So yeah, your south wall is probably a better bet. And if you can engineer an irrigation system from you can go to your hose tap if it's somewhere, and you can get a very simple clock timing mechanism. They range anywhere from $20 to $40, and you can put it on there, and that will turn your hose off and on, and you can put some irrigation there. And if you come visit me, I can show you how to do that. But that'd be good. But melons, they're warm weather critters. So
I guess so. Part of my written note was sometimes if I'm going to be away for a few days in general, I take a gallon jug and that's like a little milk jug, and I put a little pinhole in the bottom. So I use that to just put next to something to keep it from getting.
We have Marion. See what Marion's holding up? I was going to mention this is a thing called an Oya.
Yeah.
Do you want to describe, Marion?
Yeah, this is a homemade one. You can, of course, buy them that are much more elegant, but basically you just get 2 unglazed pots, and you're going to put some waterproof sealant around here, like I think it's bathroom caulk.
Yep.
And
caulk.
Plug the bottom hole here and paint the top of it, depending on your climate. If it's a south-facing wall, it's probably going to be a good idea, so that it doesn't get quite so hot. And as you pour water in here, like once a week, it's going to, because it's non-glazed, or unglazed, the water will seep out and the roots will find and go toward the water source. So it makes watering much easier, and gosh, pretty easy to find these pots. So your investment, your dollar investment is pretty low in here.
Marion, are you burying those? Are you burying that in the ground to a certain depth?
Thank you. That's actually fairly critical.
Yes.
I would bury it. Matter of fact, I don't know if you can see, this one has been buried up to right there. So that does need to go into the planning of when you are planting. I'd put the Oya in first, and then I'd plant probably about 18 inches away from the Oya.
Oh, so 18 inches, how wide of an area below that or around that will get saturated?
It's pretty amazing. The roots will find the moisture.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, cool. Moving on,
By the way,
oops.
that Oya is spelled O-L-L-A, just, it's a Spanish,
Okay.
Spanish word.
Naresh, you had a question.
Hello, Marianne and John. How are you?
Hi, Naresh.
Doing good. Okay. The thing pinching of the, told me about the pinching of the pepper plants.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
I'm a little miser guy type of guy. Even when I do prune, I am not very good on that. I try to save. So I will try this technique. I have like 6-7 plants of peppers. I will try on a couple of them this year. I won't do pinch all of them and see what happens. You
That's
told,
an excellent idea. Try,
that's,
do a
so that,
test.
that's one thing. The other thing is, I mean, I was very successful last year growing okra in my backyard, but I did it on a small scale so that I wanted to make sure it does. So this year I'm taking more chances and putting it in a more space, but I put them already in the ground like few days back.
Mm.
Okay.
They're
And then,
a little cold, Naresh. Do you have a way to protect them?
yes, I think I put the straw on the top of that. Does that protect them or no? I
If you
put a
can-
layer of straw.
If you can put up a little hoop house over it with some agribon, the nighttime
Okay.
temp is still a little cold for
Yes.
the summer. But you know what? I also say if you did it, well, actually, I can't say if you did it last year and it worked, carry forward, because this year is so different.
No, I think I did last year a little later than this time. It was
Yeah.
very hard that time. So, I mean, I pulled out my onions and garlic from there. So that was like in May when I put the okra seeds into the ground that time. But this time, I think I put little too early. I think so. But thinking that I covered that today with a straw for 2 reasons. One is saving the water so that I don't have to water. He told me that, you'll have to use less water if you grow in the plant, into the parts. But I did that. The second thing is because the cold weather is going to come in the weekend. So to protect the seeds, because they might start sprouting by that time. So do you think that's a good idea right now what I have is the straw to cover it?
Oh, so they haven't even sprouted
That
yet?
could be better.
No.
Oh, okay. It's probably too cold. I'm not sure they will sprout. Because I think okra likes a germination temperature of somewhere between 75 and 80 degrees.
Okay.
So if they're not up in 2 weeks, start again.
Okay.
Great.
Should I keep the
And
straw?
no, you make a hoop house too if you just
Okay.
make something smaller where you don't need a tall one, you just need a
Right.
Good.
I can do that.
Let's move on to another question. Somebody else raise your hand. We're going to flip through the gallery and look for hands, or you can indicate in the chat box. I'm searching through here. We've got 2 pages of pictures.
Yeah, we have a question from Jennifer Russell about green beans in the heat.
Perfect. What's the question?
Yeah, Mary, Jennifer's having trouble with her beans not working well above 95 degrees. Marion, what do you want to say about that?
We all will. I would put up some sunshade at that point, like a 34%. Gosh, I can't even think of the name of it. John, we get it from Greenhouse Megastore. What is it?
What?
What's the black cloth called?
Oh, shade cloth.
Shade cloth. Yeah, like 34% shade cloth. Depending on the size area you have, you may, if you've got a couple of beds that are going to need it, if you got it, I don't know, a couple of hundred square feet, I'd go ahead and order it from a larger concern like greenhousemegastore.com because it'll just be cheaper. But
Peaceful Valley has it.
and the big box stores will carry it as well. And definitely get it up before it'll knock down several degrees of temperature for you.
Great. And then I see a question from Nancy regarding sweet peas as a cover crop. They're a legume. They should work, right?
Now, sweet
Yep.
peas or field peas? Sweet peas are poisonous.
Oh, okay. The ornamental, yeah, sweet peas, right.
Right.
Right, exactly. You
Right.
know,
Well, you can use them as a cover crop, just don't eat them.
right, there you go. You know, on with respect to the 95-degree question, I think the virus caught us all off guard. We all know that, you know, the climate is changing and we are experiencing more droughts and so forth. But one of my major concerns is an extended period of very hot weather that really bakes our food supply. If we had 2 weeks of 120-degree weather in the Central Valley, which feeds significant part of the country, lots of things would die. So your comment about shade cloth and preparing to shield even the most robust plants, you know, preparing ahead, it might not make any sense now, but having that available as a shade option might be part of being having a resilient garden, because resilience comes in many ways.
It does, and that's really a good point, Mark. Also, look at your more drought tolerant plants.
Yes.
Okra and cowpeas grown together are drought resistant, very heat resistant. They perform beautifully together. And don't forget the North American Indians Guild of corn, beans, and squash.
Right.
When you grow those three together and throw in a Monarda or a bee balm or something or another for your beneficials to have something to eat as well, those plants grown together use less water than they would use were they grown separately. Wow. And they produce more.
That's interesting. Wow, and that's what they grow, you know, further south. You know, another thing, you haven't mentioned fruit trees, and I know that Contra Costa County specifically, because I'm very familiar with the tree crops in this area. Citrus grows very, very well in Contra Costa, at least on this side of the Berkeley Ridge, and prolific and evergreen and beautiful. And right now they smell terrific. In your opinion, is it too late to put in a citrus tree? Because I don't think it is, but I'm interested in your perspective. Because, you know, the sooner you get in the ground, you're a year ahead, even if it's a little stunted, right, to begin with. You know, at least you've done it, right? But what's your thinking on that?
Well, first of all, that's a little out of my boundaries, but I'm reminded of that Chinese saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time would be today.
Right, right.
But just, I wanted to add, this is the same thing I was talking about with the tomatoes. You know, people are asking me, you know, what day next week am I going to have tomatoes, or what day next week am I going to have oranges? You're not gonna. So if you're going to plant fruit trees, you know that you have probably a full, you know, cycle of seasons before you're going to get stuff. We have a few fruit trees at the farm here, but I like vegetables because they're always changing, they're always growing. You have summer, winter, you know, we live in this climate where you can grow something all year round. And fruit trees, you know, it's basically one crop per year.
Right.
So we balance. We do have a few. We have some figs, we have some mandarin oranges, which are great. We have lemon and lime and a few smaller ones, but I'm just a big, you know, vegetable kind of guy, and herbs, because they, you know, they're so constant and you can refresh them. And if you get tired of them, you can change out and do something different. Whereas, you know, once you get a big fruit tree, you're reluctant to cut it down. So.
Well, the reason I mentioned, as you were mentioning the crops that you can keep, the reason I mentioned citrus is I've got a tangerine tree that literally produces over 1,000 tangerines. And we started picking around Christmas. And I'm still picking now. They're still sweet. They store well in your kitchen. And again, this environment is perfect. And if we think about, as you mentioned earlier, the sense of bartering, you know, if you've got a couple of citrus trees and you plant a navel for the fall and you plant a Valencia for the summer, you'll have citrus that you can trade. Everybody wants to trade oranges. Okra is a little harder to trade.
Well, you're gonna have to come to culinary class. You're gonna find out okra is one of the best things in your head. So
great.
We've turned a lot of people around on okra and turnips, beets, a lot of things that people say they hate. So you just have to know how to cook them.
Great. So John and Marion, feel free to chime in. Tell us just a little bit more about your actual programs, what you offer, what if we were able to come down there, what we'd see, what we could sign up for, what we could look forward to, so forth.
John, I'm going to let you take that one, because I'm going to come back in because I'm getting mosquito bit out here.
Oh yeah. All right. So, well, culinary class for this semester, Friday is the last one for this semester. That's offered through DVC, but you can take it as, you know, you don't have to be in the culinary department to take it. We've run several hundreds through that already, and that is a super fun class. That's more growing, but it's a lab class, but it's culinary oriented. So we do that one. Marion does through Sustainable Contra Costa, her well-known permaculture series. Permaculture is teaching a whole system. It's a design system. It's a science that is defined around working with natural systems to make things grow better and with less resources. So permaculture is a whole topic. That's usually it's a 4 to 6 week series, depending on how we set that up. We also teach composting here, which I see some of our audience members have been here for compost class. That's a really, sounds dull, but it's actually quite useful. And that usually takes, depending on how we do it, 1 or 2 sessions to teach that. We may combine that with vermiculture, or we may add that into the permaculture, or we might just do a 1 or 2 hour session on vermiculture. So we do that. What else do we do? And then just, all the topics here, we're always inventing something new for, what to grow that, is kind of in season. So those are things. And I don't know, Mark, did I forget something? What else have we done? And we might have something else I haven't remembered.
Well, I think we're going to post your website and your contact information before the end of the show. So
Okay.
if we don't have any further questions, I think we're covered on this side for questions. I'd like to thank, there you go, Marion Woodard and John Matheson from the Rogers Ranch Urban Farm at Rogers Ranch Heritage Center in Pleasant Hill. Thank you very much. Round of applause. Everybody's on mute, but visual, jazz hands, so forth. All right. So I encourage you to visit them and support our local, really a treasure.
Oh wait, I have to have my goodbye video.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go. Okay, John's gonna show a video. There you go.
As soon as I find it. Okay, hang on. We're gonna wave good. No, this will be a. Let me.
There you go. And click speaker view if you folks haven't. This is.
Well, are you going to share your screen, John?
There you go.
Yeah. I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see. Hang on one sec. Give me a sec. I gotta get this. Ow, no. Yeah. Hang on. This will be our sign off. But
There you go. But don't leave, folks. We still have our sustainability tip of the week.
There we go.
Put on pause. Pick this up. Bear with, and then after that, I think Mark, we're all gonna drop off, right?
Well, no, actually, we've got our sustainability tip of the week, and we have upcoming events and contact information about the show and Rogers Ranch and Sustainable Contra Costa. So go for it.
All right. Well, this is not. No, I guess it just isn't. Here we go. There we go. Now we got my screen. This is a 20-second video of us waving goodbye from where we were just out in the dark, and it's easier to see when the light is on.
Okay, we're seeing your folder with your video.
Oh no. Well, let's see. That didn't work. Hang on. I'm not.
Imagine if you would.
We'll start it over. Hang on. And this is. I know the buildup is
Yeah.
too much.
And I don't know whether you have 2 screens, but you might want to share the appropriate screen.
Yeah. Oh wait.
Can you see it?
No. Hang
Nope.
on. No. Hang on. Got to start over. Sorry about that.
It's worth it, folks. It's worth it. So hang in there.
Well, hang on one sec.
And it's not like you guys are going to run off to a late reservation at a restaurant at 8:30.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Glass of wine that beckons.
Yeah. We're
Right.
due for wine.
Yeah. Okay. It still ain't happening.
Your screen sharing is paused.
Well,
You know what? If we can get it up, we'll send it another day.
Okay. Maybe we'll do it toward the end of the show. Okay. So Tyler, hand us back.
Okay.
Okay. And so Tyler, what's our sustainability tip of the week?
Thank you, Mark. So this is our Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge, Sustainability Tip of the Week. What is the Cleaner Contra Costa Challenge? It is a wonderful online platform that allows you to track your progress in reducing your household carbon footprint and find a whole broad range of fun actions that your family can do to reduce your carbon footprint. And whenever you have the question, well, how am I supposed to do that? The challenge platform answers it. It is full of resources and literally step-by-step recipes for how to do all these things, from the very simplest things that many of us have heard about, but have we all done it? Like changing our light bulbs to LEDs, or Mark's favorite, buying a induction range to replace
Or
your gas stove.
stovetop, right?
Yeah, stovetop to replace your gas stove.
Yes.
Up to something much larger, like removing your lawn and things like that. So there's a whole series of actions, and some of them are oriented towards renters and others towards homeowners. But right now they have just created a whole category of actions on the challenge platform called hanging out at home, because that's what we're doing right now. We're hanging out at home, and there's a lot of things we can still be doing to reduce our carbon footprint as we're at home. And there was one of the particular actions called reduce and reuse. And it has a number of different steps, and some of them we're all pretty familiar with, like using cloth grocery bags, although right now it's hard to do that, but in a general sense, they're great. Reusable water bottles, things like that. But there is one particular section that I wanted to focus on called borrow, swap, sell, free cycle, or share. And it really just gets you to ask the following questions before you throw something out. Could somebody else use it, right? Does it have some life left in it? Or before you buy something new, do you really need it? And does it have to be new?
Right.
And these are pretty simple questions, but do we stop and ask ourselves that every time? Not necessarily. And there's a lot of resources that you can use to find things that you might be looking for and to offer things that you aren't using anymore. So next door, Craigslist, there's one called Free Cycle that some of you may know of. Free Cycle right now has actually said, please only post essential items, because they're probably getting overloaded. Most of us are sitting here in our shelter in place, frantically going through all the old piles and boxes and coming up with wonderful, huge quantities of things we're ready to get rid of. So you may have to wait a little bit to use some of these like Free Cycle, but they are a great way. And Nextdoor with your neighbors is a great way to connect. You can just drop it on their doorstep. Don't even have to get within 6 feet of them. And then of course with tools, a lot of times we don't think about it, but you can borrow or lend tools even now at a safe distance or with sanitizing. There are even places that have set up tool libraries, neighborhoods that have a system where they organize the tools that people have and how to lend and borrow them. And then finally, I want you to think about fixing things and not throwing it away if it's broken. We have a disposable culture that we've developed over the last 100 years that it's really time to shift that. So there's a particularly great website called cultureofrepair.org. And not only do they tell you different platforms and different resources that you can use to fix things. For example, there's a site called ifixit.com that actually gives you instructions on replacing batteries on cell phones and things that you're not necessarily going to be told how to do. But it also, these people that created a culture of repair are doing advocacy work to move us in the direction of manufacturing products that can be repaired, because so many of them are made to be thrown away, and that's what we want to move away from. So check that all out, but in the short term, just look at the things you have and see if there's things you can let go of. And if you need something, does it have to be new, right? Because every time something is manufactured, it is a lot of resources and a lot of energy to create a new one. I will say just a quick warning about the thrift stores. It's great to donate to thrift stores, but not right now. They're not open. And we've seen pictures of people dumping huge piles of things in front of thrift stores that are closed. And that, of course, is not okay. So hold on to it. Keep it in the garage until the time comes. But that's a great way to get rid of it. So that's your tip of the week.
Great. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate that. And so guests and audience, if you have a sustainability tip to share with Sustainable Contra Costa, you can send it in. We'll display contact information here in a minute. But Tina, what's upcoming in terms of events and so forth? And we've got to unmute Tina. Tina. She's looking right at us. She just dropped Tina.
I am not muting her. She's unmuted.
Oh, okay. Well, you can hear us, Tina. You were just there. We were just watching you. Well, tell you what, Tina, if you pop in to give us some updates.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm back.
There you go.
I get unmuted here.
Okay.
Okay, hi everybody. It's really great to see your faces. So we are taking our sustainable living workshops online starting tomorrow morning with the growing and using herbs workshop. So you can register right up to the start of the event time at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, but registration is required. We hope you'll join us along with Supervisor John Joya and other speakers for the Cleaner Contra Costa Earth Day celebration event. You can connect with us at that event on Saturday, April 25th at 1:00 p.m. It's only an hour long and it's free, and get inspired about all the ways you can take action for the climate while hanging out at home. The registration link is on our calendar on our website. Now is the time to submit your nominations for the Leadership in Sustainability and Green Building Awards. Please help us to recognize an individual, a school, businesses, government programs, or community group for their outstanding sustainability efforts by filling out a simple nomination form. All of these things can be found on our website at sustainablecocoa.org. This has been Sustainability Tonight, a production of Sustainable Contra Costa. Our goals for this show are to provide you with useful information. Oh, you can hear my howling alarm going off, howling for healthcare workers in the background here. But our goal for this show is to provide you with useful and timely information about all the aspects of sustainable living, guided by the 10 One Planet Living principles, and to provide an online community for sharing information and learning together. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Central San, Mount Diablo Resource Recovery, Contra Costa County Green Business Program, MCE, EcoMulch, Republic Services, Contra Costa Water District Recycle Smart, Contra Costa Center Transit Village, and the cities of Martinez, Walnut Creek, Antioch, Pittsburgh, and Pleasant Hill. The full list of our sponsors is on our website. And thank you so much to Sustainability Tonight's crew. Our producer is Rena Wang. Our director and host is Mark Westwind. Our technical director is Tyler Snortum Phelps, and our graphic designer is Michael Lowe. Tyler?
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
There's the Rogers Ranch drone video. That's awesome.
That's great. And John, what's the URL for Rogers Ranch?
Let me just put that up right now for you,
Good.
Mark.
Okay.
There it is.
Got a graphic. There you go. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us once again. Look to our website for upcoming shows. Thank you again, John and Marion. Round of applause. Thank you, Tyler, Tina, Rena. See you next time.